CVA taking that one, I'd just like to remind all of you that we do have our PCU contest tomorrow. The PCU contest, of course, guessing the number of people online at the same time, when we hopefully break the record for people online at TQ at the same time. We have really cool prizes. We have Eon magazines. They're just coming up on the screen now. You get Eon magazines, you get a graphics card from NVIDIA, and you get a Bigfoot Networks killer. It supposedly makes your internet speed 200% faster. If you play FPS games, you may experience killing people in the future. And if you don't think that's an advantage in an FPS game, you don't understand science. We have a new guest in our studio, CCP Shark. How are you today, sir?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm very, very good. So the ones of us that have played EVE for a long time,
yes,
we noticed that the EVE has a UI, and it does things.
Yes.
And then at some point we decided maybe we should do something with the UI more than just have it be there. And we hired people like you, UI designers. So what are your primary responsibilities here at CCP? What do you do?
My primary responsibilities is to develop new UI for new features and try to maintain and develop old UI if we get time to do that, development cycles.
So we have, for example, the UI in Planetary Interaction, which looks drastically different than the old stuff. Have you been working on Planetary Interaction, for example?
Yeah, I was on that team with Planetary Interaction. I'm responsible for those disks and lines.
Okay, so the hot little intuitive things that go around on your colonies and all that stuff is stuff you've been working with?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And do you think that we'll get more focus on making the old UI better as well in the future?
I sure hope so. I mean, every time we do a new piece of UI, and if it's connected to an old piece of UI, we try to make that old piece of software better. But
does it make your UI designer heart cry a little bit when you see some of the old UI?
Sometimes a bit.
Sometimes a little bit.
Deep inside.
Let's talk a little bit more about UI after the next match. Let's quickly go back to this one. CVA winning this one. Veron, you're happy. Were you also surprised, or was it like...
After I saw the loadouts on the field, I wasn't surprised. It was just a matter of CVA trying to keep the destroyers out of the way so that they could come back in later and try and take the bombers out. Pretty much what happened, I suppose. They lost a couple of ships, but I think they did awesomely. I think it's a sound strategy. It worked well. It's the first time we've seen that loadout, and it was just good shown by CVA. I liked it.
The bombers were fun, though. There's nothing better than a match that starts with everything going into armor. Was 6 bombers too much?
I'm not sure if the bombers were used effectively. I think they underestimated the destroyers and overestimated the amount of DPS that would come from those Abaddons. They went for that battleship cluster first and waited for the Oneros to be frazzled enough to pick a target and went for something else. It was interesting that those Abaddons went down first. Usually they're a pretty heavy tank and they could not hold up, seemingly paper thin. But they seem to have underestimated the amount of damage that would come out of those Balgorns, who are notoriously strong tank and also incredibly useful as a utility ship with their newts and webs. So I'm not sure necessarily if that initial bomb run was the most effective use of them.
Yeah. I've just been told that we are going to be slightly delayed going into the next match. Circle of 2 are not entirely ready now due to circumstances that are out of their hands, so we're going to give them a quick chance to get on. Of course, we want everyone to be able to compete this Alliance tournament without spaceships blowing up. It's a boring, boring tournament. But you know what that means? It means I get to talk to you guys, which is not entirely bad. Let's go do some of the basics then. One of the good things, of course, is that we always have new people watching who may not understand all the terminology used here. And when we have things like a logistics ship, what is a logistics ship and what role does it fill on a team, Veron?
A logistics ship is a cruiser platform. It's based on a Tech 1 cruiser. And it's pretty much, it's not an offensive ship at all, generally. If it's used correctly, it isn't. It's there to provide remote support for any member of its gang, and it does that by capacitor transfer, by remote armor transfer, or remote shield transfer. Basically just trying to buffer and support other ships in its gang by assisting them with added hit points, added capacitor. Sometimes they're used offensively with target painters, or crazy people might fit damps to them. Some people field combat drones with them as well, Although generally in normal PvP on Tranquility, it's generally best to go with logistics drones as well.
That is true, and we've certainly seen quite a few logistics drones here. Before we got the wonderful Mr. CCP Shark, we had CCP Diagras on, and we were talking about the CSM. I just got a message from a CSM member just reminding us that 49 issues that have been brought up by the CSM have been implemented. 33 are currently in the pipeline to be implemented right now, and 190 of them, and he mentions UI enhancement as well, is on the list to be put into an expansion as well. So the CSM is certainly very active. They also note that they had a suggestion to give POS fuel in planetary interaction, which they certainly have. So just a quick message from a CSM member reminding us that they have actually got a lot of stuff in, which is good, which is good. Angel, you are with IT Alliance.
I am.
Formerly known as Band of Brothers.
Formerly Band of Brothers, previously Kenzoku, Bob,
yes.
Band of Brothers Reloaded. Yes.
And formerly Tournament Aces.
Yes.
They have quite a few tournament wins, but we haven't seen them for a few years. Are there any plans to re-enter the tournament?
I'm not at liberty to say. It's certainly possible. There, we have a number of people that could do it. As I mentioned, I believe the first weekend we were a little bit busy, and we had to give everybody else a chance.
That's very fair and very kind of you. We actually have a graph ready for you now. It is
love graphs.
Provided by our interstellar correspondents. It is ships fielded, points fielded by race. And we see that Minmatar is very, very popular as well. Not that surprising, we do see a lot of them. And a lot of Kaldari, a lot of Tengus, a lot of Drakes traditionally. I was looking at the list of ships yesterday, and as far as I remember, 3 of the top 6 most used ships are Kaldari. So quite a few of them. But look at the pirate factions. Angel Cartel, that's a lot as well. They almost rival MR. As far as I remember, the pirate factions together actually outweigh Galente. Which brings us to an interesting point. Verone, why are Galente not being used that much then?
Well, they're really good for the style of PvP that I personally do. Very hard-hitting, very ultra-close range PvP. But there are so many variables in the tournament in terms of how far apart teams can come in. Especially with the prevalent use of bombers, you can end up to the point where you field, say, 3 Megathrons, and you're 80 kilometers away from the opposing team. And by the time that you come together, one of your Megathrons is dead, another one's in structure, and you've lost at least half of the DPS in your team. So it's very hit and miss, and I think that Minmatar and Kaldari give the survivability, and Minmatar just give the outright damage that's needed. So I think that's why they're the most popular.
We have seen the Megathron hull a few times. We saw triple Vindicators from Solar Fleet the first weekend, and we did see 2 Chronoses the second weekend, and 2 Vindicators again from Atlas Alliance. So they are effective when used properly, but the amount of variables to be used against them, that can be countered against them, is really, the risks sometimes outweigh the benefits. Although it's interesting to note that a lot of the teams are not fitting Galente jammers because of the infrequency of Galente sensor strength ships. So it may be, we'll see them later.
That's a fun thing you said right there, by the way, not fitting Galente jammers. CVA, who we just saw, had a setup last weekend that looked like it was going to lose, but the other team said CVA never fielded MR ship, so we didn't field MR jammers. It's like a little bit of a trap there you can walk into. Shark, you play Eve as well?
Yeah, a bit.
Now, of course, you can't tell your character name or who you play with, but are you a big-time PvPer, industrialist? How do you spend your time in Eve?
I started off. I hadn't had much experience with Eve before I started CCP. But after I started CCP, I started playing regularly. I started out care bearing as most, and I've tried to touch upon most aspects of the game. I'm a terrible PvPer. I've tried some PvPing. I haven't done the whole big fleet thing, but I've done some solo PvPing and some roaming. I'm very good at getting killed.
Yeah,
me too.
I'm worse at killing, but I want to improve on that, and so I think I'm gonna go headfirst into PvP in the next, coming weeks.
PvP is a lot of fun. It is the reason many of us play, at least. The last time I PvP'd in any official level for CCP was at the FanFest tournament, devs versus players, and I forgot to load ammo on my ship, flew onto the field, pressed the buttons, nothing happened, and I was just killed, and then I just went out and had a beer and just left it to the pros. We should be ready with the next match, Circle of Two versus Red Overlord, a rematch of one of the best matches in the Alliance tournament so far, in about 5 minutes. They should be getting set up now. There was a brief real-life emergency that happened to Circle of Two, and we just had to wait for them to fix it. We want as many teams blowing each other up in this tournament as possible. They brought more than 100 billion worth of ships last time. Do you think we're going to see, was that like a bit of flash brought out for the crowd, or do you think they're going to bring that again?
I can tell you they probably have mammoth-sized genitals to bring that kind of thing onto the field, onto probably one of the most deadly arenas that you could imagine, other than Jeddah during Sunday prime time. It was impressive, but to note, they did lose their flagship that will not be making a reappearance. And there was a resilient team. That one of the Frekkies was close to die for quite a while. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat watching that. But it'll be interesting to see how they manage without the flagship. It was very effective in neutralizing Red Overlord. Well, no pun intended, because it's a Valgorn, but yes.
It definitely was, and usually in the studio it is very nice and quiet when the matches are going on. Everyone's just doing their work and getting ready for the next match. But when that Frekke dipped into structure, pretty much everyone was standing up and yelling and screaming. And as you said, if anyone was on the balls last weekend, it was certainly CO2 doing an amazing job there. So I'm looking forward to this. Are we going to see the same result today, Verona? Are they going to come out and do it again?
It is a close match. I mean, providing Circle of Two have no further issues, any further real-life issues, I think it's going to be a really, really violent, hard-hitting, close, fast-paced match, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing it. Honestly, I don't even want to call it, because these guys are just so evenly matched, so good in the tournament. I'm just going to enjoy it.
Red Overlord had a fantastic first match. That triple Macarial setup just obliterated the opposing. I don't even remember who they were playing. They weren't on the field very long, regardless. I believe it was less than 2 minutes it took them to win, or just over. And then when they came up against Circle of Two, and we saw just a couple seconds in advance what Circle of Two had, my jaw hit the floor. I'm not sure if it was necessarily outweighing skill or an inferior setup from Red Overlord, but it was very similar to their first setup. So hopefully they're going to change that strategy a bit.
I can't wait to see it. While we wait for them to get set up, we are going to go see our two commentators, Kill2 and Darius Johnson. They are with the lovely Stevie SG in the commentator booth.
Hello, yes, you are indeed with me. Hello, I'm Stevie SG, and I'm here in the booth with the lovely Kill2 and my dear friend Darius Johnson. How are we doing, boys?
Wonderful. Yay! I'm pumped.
You're still pumped. He said he was pumped this morning, and I'm glad that the enthusiasm is, you're riding the wave, as it were.
I'm glad I'm the commentator and not the chair.
We're also glad you're the commentator and not the chair. Anyway, I'm your forum correspondent for the remainder of the day and tomorrow, and I've got some questions from the forums. Someone wants to know, can the teams lock each other before matches start?
Lock each other?
Yeah.
No. There is a Claw, who you hear about constantly, runs an ECM burst at the start of every match. So he does a countdown, and then he breaks all the locks on the field, and it starts from there. So that's actually really important, because lock times, on smaller ships come into play. We see a lot of damps on ships like the bombers, and they can get locks before ships like rooks. And so that's actually really important. And yeah, they definitely don't have locks beforehand.
Oh, well, there you go. Someone else, Darius, do teams choose their matches via logistics? Like, what kind of logistics are people using? What kind of setups are people using?
Well, we're seeing a lot of Guardians, a lot of Basilisks. I'm not quite sure what you mean by logistics, so I'm answering as far as logistic ships are concerned.
Do you think there are sort of like specific 5 different types of setups that people can use?
No, not really. I mean, you have a lot of variation, and especially in what we're seeing here. I think what we're seeing here more than anything is more of the Minmatar speed setups. I think that you saw the little graph that kind of showed all of that. But it was kind of even with kind of the Caldari shield tanking, damage setup. So, yeah, I think people have a reason for picking what they pick, but I don't think that there's any canned team thing that
so
we're
we
seeing.
haven't been seeing any kind of typical stuff over the past couple of weekends.
Well, I think that everybody borrows from everybody. I think that you are seeing a lot of kind of almost like those PL-centric setups, and you are seeing a lot more people using bombers and things, some of them more effectively than others. But I think it gets more interesting, especially now when you start to see a little more variation in what happens. One of the big things, or one thing that's very important, is not to have anybody know what it is you're going to bring when you show up, right?
That does help.
Yeah, so that's part of why you see variation. Everybody, when they're forming their teams, wants to surprise somebody.
Well, we have seen a little bit of metagaming going on. What's been going on over the past weekends?
This weekend, I'm sure we had lots of people reading other people's forums. And then this past weekend, we did also have some issues on the test server with various groups either following each other around or interfering with their practices and then getting very upset and crying like babies about it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of forum threads about what happened. It's quite interesting. In the break, if you want to have a read, it's quite good fun. You can actually go to our forums on eveonline.com if you do have questions for these guys. There's a thread specifically for it, and you can post in there, and I'll get any questions to these guys at all. Some guy wants to know, what's the attraction to the Dremel?
The Dremel is super kind of flavor of the... Hey, that saying, by the way, flavor of the week, is it of the week or of the month?
Flavor of the month,
Okay.
FLTM.
Okay, so they're big on TQ right now. They're just very good. Since Dominion, when the faction ships, pirate faction ships all got changed, the Dremel did really well, and it's super popular there. And I think that has something to do with why it's so popular here. But it's just good. I mean, it's does a lot of damage. It's very fast. It's just a really efficient tackler, and compared to most of the other ships that would fill that role, it's up near the top. So we see a lot of it. It's not overly complicated, I don't think.
Okay, and someone wants to know, why do we not see more of the anti-drone?
The what?
Anti-drone.
Do you know what
Why
an
do we
anti-drone
not?
is?
I think what he's talking about is more of the where people start targeting drones instead of targeting the ships on the other side, and I think that's just because some people just aren't as good as others, or perhaps the setup that they're fighting, killing the drones might not be as important. You're going to see some setups that are less drone heavy than others.
Yeah, I think it's really rare that killing drones is the right thing. I mean, what you really need to do is kill drones. That's not super common. It's maybe only really important in setups where you can't break tanks on ships, but you have time to kill drones to break their tank. Because otherwise, you're for the most part better off killing ships.
But when it is important, it's really important.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, well, thanks, guys. Again, if you have questions, you can go to the forums. Also, you can join us in IRC on EVE Online. It's on coldfront.net. EVE-Online is the channel, and there's some lovely, well-mannered gentlemen in there who can take your questions and pass them through to Uncle Soundwave in the studio and me. I think in that case, we'll go over to Soundwave.
Thank you very much, Stevie and the commentators back there. Just one thing, if you remember last week, we waived the €5 or $5 registration fee for a new account. We've done that this weekend as well. If you want to buy an account this weekend, and if you imagine there's no monthly subscription fee, EVE is literally free this weekend. That's a really good offer. If I didn't have many accounts, I would be buying one because it's free. If you imagine there's no monthly subscription fee. Are you guys buying accounts this weekend?
I already have far too many.
I've been innumerable number at this point.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, I mean, hopefully as long as someone does it, we will be happy. Circle of Two versus RED.OVERLORD. We had a bit of an accident. Circle of Two play all their games from an internet cafe. So contrary to many other teams who will be placed around the world, they're simply sitting together in real life. No need for TeamSpeak. If they do use TeamSpeak, it'll be a weird setup because they'd be sitting right next to each other and screaming. But they are sitting together in real life. And what happened, why we're delayed now, is that the internet cafe actually lost power. So we had a full Alliance tournament team ready to go that simply didn't even have lights.
Metagaming?
There may have been someone from Pandemic Legion cutting the power lines. I don't want to start a rumor, but that may have happened.
I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but we decided to give them 5 to 10 minutes to get the power up and running again, and they have. So we should be going to the match right about now. Circle of 2 versus Red Overlord. Let's get a quick round of who's going to win it.
Red Overlord.
Circle of 2.
Who's flying again?
I'm going to go with Circle of 2. They did tremendously last time, and I do love the expensive setups. Let's see if they have another expensive setup for us.